Whew. Wow. It's getting cold out. Gotta start dressing warmly. Yeah, I'm still at that awkward stage where I wear long sleeve shirts and shorts at the same time. Kind of weird, right? Speaking of clothes, we're gonna have to hope we fit into our winter clothes. Man, those quarantines really weren't helping out our weight. But you know, a really good idea to prepare for that? Why not pig out on candy? That's always gonna help, right? The wind blowing leaves across the streets, the distant echo of children laughing, maybe screaming? That means that it's really here, all of those things. The season, the time when the leaves turn colors and the shadows grow deeper. Hey, did you put your pumpkin out? Is it lit up? Did you remember to do that this year? Yeah, I did. I got mine out. I guess we're ready then. Wonder if we'll get any trick-or-treaters this year. I didn't get any last year, and for a while there, none. If we do get some, I hope they have, like, cool costumes. Hey, say, while you're here, do you know any good ghost stories? I mean, I guess I know of a couple I could tell you about. It's still light out, but by the time we're done, it may just be a bit darker. You may have heard this one before, but it's a good one. Michael Myers killed his sister in cold blood in 1963. He spent 15 years in a sanitarium, staring at a wall, through a wall, stared forwards, towards a certain night that had yet to happen, waiting for it with inhuman patience. Michael has broken out of that sanitarium. The doctor who cared for him, studied him for all those years, Loomis, understands just what has occurred. Michael Myers is not a man. It is the shape of death, and Loomis gives chase to a pale horse. Laurie Strode and Tommy Doyle, a babysitter in her ward, walked to school. Laurie, helping her realtor father with the home showing, drops keys off at the door of a house. A haunted house. The haunted house. The place where Michael Myers killed his sister 15 years ago. Laurie's act is harmless, routine, yet an act nonetheless. One that draws the attention of eyes within that former home. Those eyes are Michael Myers, the black eyes of fate. Tonight is the night he came home. Tonight is Halloween 1978. Yep, it's the original best Halloween movie, best movie to watch at Halloween. Halloween. Man, I'm gonna wear that word out. That's a lot of Halloweens there. Speaking of worn out, what can I possibly say about Halloween that has not been heard, read, or felt before? Not much. But I suppose I must review it, in any case. Halloween, for me, is an extremely intimate horror movie. It features a small cast, it was filmed on a shoestring budget that really shows. There are some scenes that feature palm trees and mountains in Illinois, or certain scenes that are only seconds apart, but they go from, say, sunny afternoon to very bright noon to rainy afternoon. But it doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. The movie works, regardless of any imperfections. Not one pumpkin you would find in a patch is perfect, and I love the imperfections here in Halloween as much as I do the whole pumpkin. Especially the scary face carved into that pumpkin. Halloween is scary. It builds a sense of tension with constant, skillful moments of unease, of stalking, of pursuit, ending in violent confrontation. Blink, and you may just miss some of these clever moments. The movie is delivered with probably the most recognizable movie music ever. I'm quite serious. Everyone with ears that can hear knows the Halloween theme song. It's John Carpenter's crowning achievement and is an instrumental that is as instrumental to these movies as Michael Myers is himself. Michael Myers, The Shape, It, Death. By any name, he is the king of slashers. Myers is tall, hulking, really, an icon made out of otherwise discreet items. That mask, you can't forget it. Blue coveralls. It's so simple, but it works. Of course, we can't speak about Michael and not bring up his activities, his hobbies. The murders in Halloween are not as brutal as what he would come to do in future movies, but you really have to appreciate his dedication here in Halloween. Audiences back then would have to wonder who in the world could successfully strangle somebody with a coily telephone cord. Have you ever tried to do anything with a coily telephone cord? It's not easy. You really have to string it out a long way before it gets any tension. Modern audiences may wonder what a telephone cord is, but that's an argument for another day. You also have to give Michael props for his sense of Halloween decorations. His display here with an actual tombstone lugged up into a bedroom would win any Halloween office contest. Michael's first on-screen kill as an adult, the car strangulation, is beautiful. The mask seen through the fogged window, this is perhaps Michael Myers' scariest moment. A touch I noticed in his scenes here is that Michael makes a lot more noise in these movies than he does in the other ones. He grunts with exertion. They didn't try and edit it out or say he was mute. We know he can't talk, but it's more interesting if he's just choosing not to talk. When he could be saying a lot of things, it makes him a lot scarier than maybe he just can't talk because he smoked too much or something, something like that. Of course, we can't forget the images of Michael simply standing. It is his trademark and it is wonderfully effective. Imitating this standing in public will get you immediately questioned, assaulted, or shot in today's world, to be honest. Michael may not have been the first masked on-screen killer, but he nonetheless popularly started the booming trend of masked menaces in movies. Jason, Freddy, whoever, they all owe him their due. Myers also represented a trend himself, though, the real fear of the 1970s and the early 1980s when serial killing was reaching a media peak and our worst monsters were becoming known not just to lurk in our stories, but on the news and in our streets. People around us were stalking us, catching us, and killing us. The police could not necessarily stop all of these people who were hunting us. And worse, if you were suddenly to be in such a deadly situation, you may not get help from anyone. That lack of help represented a concern at the time, a feeling of a loss of social cohesion, a distrust among neighbors. Specific scenes in Halloween call these fears up, and not only fears of serial killers, that's pretty obvious, but scenes that call out society's supposed failures also occur. Recall when Laurie is running away from Michael, calling for help, banging on a neighbor's door. Laurie is screaming at the person who looks at her through the window. The person shuts the blinds, turns the lights out, and ignores her. Laurie has been ignored at the absolute worst possible moment. This scene, to me, it's likely a reference to the 1964 Kitty Genovese killing, where a woman was violently murdered. Despite the act being witnessed, legends say that no one called for help. No one intervened for Kitty. Of course, it was later found out that there's no proof of any of these witnesses ignoring her, but the story was popular enough in the 70s and resonated enough to be something people took seriously. They thought that if you had something bad happen to you, you may end up in a situation where no one's going to help you because society blows, man. Speaking of popular sentiment, though, I want to do something cool here, a trick or a treat, if you will, on this Halloween night. A graceful soul on the internet managed to upload an audience reaction to Halloween. But it's not just any reaction, it's a reaction from 1979, just a year after the movie was released. It is about as close as you, viewer, are going to get to seeing Halloween with audiences from around the time this movie first came out and they first became acquainted with Michael Myers. You might have already seen it, it's been on the internet since 2011, but I think it's super cool, and I want to share it here. I don't know about you, but I would be the guy yelling, "One more time!" at Loomis after he shot Michael. And yeah, I am that guy. I talk during the movies, not just when I'm reviewing them. Sorry. And I don't do it as much as I used to. I get all my talking out here with you. I have to give Halloween 1978 5 out of 5 pumpkins that you're excited to see, even though you know you're not about to get any candy. Just a whole lot of death. Michael Myers survived that night that many did not in 1978. For 40 years, he's waited. Finally, his moment comes. October 31st, 2018. Michael Myers escapes confinement and comes back home one last time. An emotionally ravaged but utterly prepared survivalist lives in that home. She's been spending her days in a house that is more trap than shelter. She finds out, after all this time, all these decisions made, that she was right. But she only finds out after having lost everything on the way there. Surviving and living turn out to be two very different things. This woman is Laurie Strode, and she has trained her mind, body, and marksmanship to answer what comes to her door now. Though her daughter tries to forget it, she has not lost her training. Though her granddaughter never knew the terror of growing up with the survivor and their trauma, she still tries to maintain love with her grandmother, as hard as it can be. These things, these people, are what's at stake. This is fate. The battle of 40 years ago is not over. The culmination of years of hate between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode boils over. The question is, whose hate is stronger? Is it Laurie Strode's victimization? That sacrifice that she made, that anger that she possesses, that's fueled by all of the pain that she had from every hard decision she made in trying to do the right thing and to prepare for what is now waiting for her outside. Can she justify all that she's lost, all that she's done to survive, only to end up alone, now that she is at the ultimate zenith, the confrontation, the end of all this suffering? Meanwhile, Michael Myers has lost nothing, is nothing, but wants everything. He wants her life, he wants the life of her daughter, he wants the life of her granddaughter. Will the shape, the embodiment of hatred, the end of so many holiday experiences, the ultimate ancient point of Samhain, that time when we were to be on guard against evil, will that thing that is out there overwhelm her? It's a story that can only be told on Halloween night. The stars of movie making, and not the Thorn Rune stars, we're not going to talk about those right now, have aligned. Jamie Lee Curtis gets her wish to make another Halloween with original cast members. The reduced budget of this movie ensures that only the core elements of a Halloween movie are going to be included. We're erasing all the other movies. We're only going to say that the first Halloween movie happened. So there's no point where we have to stop and say, we have to explain what Michael Myers is now that he survived X, Y, and Z. All those crazy things that Michael Myers has been put through over these many movies to kill him. We don't have any of that, so we don't have to worry about it. Rather, the only story that we have is that Michael survived Halloween 1978, the first movie, and has been waiting 40 years to escape, now in 2018. There's no surviving a human roast, there's no having been hit by a car and shot 100 times and fallen down a mine shaft. No magic powers are needed to explain Michael. Good. Michael Myers is back. The mask isn't too tight, and the feeling's right. It must be Halloween night, and yeah, this is the only Halloween sequel we need. I rewatched this movie for the series review of Halloween, and I'm glad that I did. 2018's Halloween is as sharp as Mikey's knives are. I dug the hell out of the militant Laurie Strode, now a grandmother who has spent all those years since he came home training herself and her daughter in self-defense, preparing her home as a defensive bulwark against a threat that still lurks out in the world. Yeah, it's a bit bombastic for her to do all this. I can see why they took her kid away. I understand that part. But it's understandable in this situation because this is a world where Michael Myers is still alive. In the other Halloween movies, they're like, he's dead, he died. We saw him burn to death, and we probably buried his body after giving it an autopsy. But in this one, no, he's still alive. And you know how crazy people can be. You know how crazy the past few years have been with people just going cuckoo over their Subway sandwich or something like that. So for this guy, Michael Myers, to exist and to have actually successfully killed people and still to be out there, that's a pretty good reason to do the whole Sarah Connor routine and prepare yourself for whatever's coming. So I understand it. It's understandable and it's believable, and that's two of the most important things you can have in a serious horror movie. The movie also picks up on the familial strains that were seen in Halloween H2O and amplifies it. In H2O, to be very brief, Laurie has a son, and her son resents her for being so defensive about everything he does. She's not quite as extreme as this Laurie in Halloween 2018, but it's expanding upon that idea, which I think is a very good idea. But anyway, in this movie, it shows Laurie's crusade was detected by the powers that be, and as a result, they took her daughter away from her at a young age. This dogmatic certainty she has that Michael Myers will return has driven the Strode family apart. That's one of the big messages of this movie. Laurie's battle is an utterly lonely one, and it's a real horror amongst a movie with slasher movie horrors. Imagine having survived the events of one night where your close friends were killed, where your sense of normalcy, of being safe, were taken away permanently, probably. And imagine, that no one really understands why you act the way you do. Not even your own kid. I mean, they weren't there. They weren't around when that happened. They love you, but they don't necessarily understand. And that's a different type of love. It would almost make you want to fake dying and move to California. That said, Halloween 2018 also acknowledges our current world. In fact, a stoner teen character boldly asks Strode's granddaughter just what the big deal is about surviving a murder spree that was only 4 bodies deep. And it's true. In America today, 4 people got killed. Oh, that's Tuesday. That's nothing. But in the 70s, it was something. We must forget all the sequels and the bigger body counts and assess Michael Myers as a big deal based on one night alone. I think Halloween 2018 is accurate in saying that people wouldn't consider it a big deal. He'd be as important as old Charlie Bowles over in Russellville who got a hacksaw, and we never know. Even Halloween 1978 has one of those stories that's supposed to be super violent, but it's immaterial. We got to worry about the present. Who cares? And that's kind of sad if you think about it. Our boogeymen from our favorite horror movies can't compete with your regular, disgruntled post office man at delivering sudden death. Who and what is worse now? Michael or society? The sequel to Halloween 2018 tries to attempt to answer this question, but you'll have to wait for that review to see if it's successful or not, in my opinion. That said, to kind of get past that question of what's the deal with Michael Myers, who cares, Halloween 2018 immediately establishes him as a threat. Take the very first scene where we see Michael Myers. It's intimidating. He's standing out in the psych ward yard. There's these 2 British podcasters who are going out there with a Dr. Sartain, Michael's caretaker, to interview him. The podcasters hold up a mask. It's Michael's mask. It's the Shape's mask, and he does nothing. Nothing at all. But the people around him, the patients, they have a reaction. They begin to scream and gnash and writhe in some sort of grim, cohesive fashion that suggests that they are attuned not to our world, to something we could understand, but to something deeper. And that they can hear, as Dr. Sartain called it, an unheard marching order. Something that Michael Myers can receive. Something that I picture as like a drummer, a force that directs Michael, and it's starting to beat again on those drums in this scene. It's a great scene. I don't know the implication that Michael Myers is evil in ways that are almost supernatural works. It's a common problem in the Halloween sequels. Michael, at some point, has to be explained. The more Michael you get, eventually you got to explain the guy because he's just unbelievably and thus unentertainingly impossible to kill. He's a true impossible boogeyman, a monster. And thus, he's not really scary because humans are, again, real and much worse than monsters for that fact. If it's not real, it's not really scary. Not to me. There's a moment, like a switch, in the Halloween sequel where Michael goes from being interesting to just being inevitable. At that point, the audience kind of understands that unheard marching order that we spoke about, and it's a movie producer. And the movie producer is saying, Michael Myers is invincible. He can come back from anything, and he's going to keep coming back because you, the audience, keeps coming back to theaters to give us your money. And that's the only reason he's coming back. That's it. There's no truth to any of it. He's the boogeyman, whatever. Just give me your money. That's all they're saying. And it kind of ruins the whole Halloween thing, makes it a Hollywood thing, to make Michael something more than just a really pissed off guy. But I digress. Back to the movie. Michael is a threat in this film, and he's pretty much just a regular guy. In some of the best lit scenes that I've seen in a film, Michael's bus to prison crashes, he escapes, and he commences to killing anyone and everyone in his way. His first on-screen victim is a child. Whoa, they were not pulling any punches here. It's brutal. He's brutal. Michael is brutal. And by the way, just so he doesn't kill me, hey Michael, your mask in this movie looks perfect. His stature is impressive. And the deaths are simplistic and not too showy, but they're effective. They're head-stompingly effective. The movie acknowledges the low body count of that original 1978 movie, and it amplifies it. Michael kills 16 people in all in this movie. One of those people is even Artie, the strongest man in the world. Rest in peace, dude. God, Michael's a monster. That final confrontation we spoke about between Laurie Strode, her children, her grandchildren, and Michael is perfectly in line with Halloween 1978, and with Halloween as a lesson in life. Not just a holiday, but a lesson. We seem to have forgotten, if we ever knew it, the original point of Samhain. It was a time of sacrifice. As the weather grew cold, and we had spent as much time as we could in the sun preparing for winter, we turned to the mystic, to the unknowable, to gain the sort of results that hard work growing food in a field all day could not produce. The pagans sacrificed at this time of year. They sacrificed tokens of life to ward off bad luck. Evil, really. Death, actually. In a way, Halloween is a time when we sacrifice our ultimate safety by venturing out into the dark of the American night. We open ourselves up to a realm of the spirit of the unknowable and try to find whatever fortune can come our way. This is the reason for the season. It's a lesson in Halloween 2018 that Laurie Strode took to its ultimate conclusions. She sacrificed her comfort, sacrificed her happiness, and sacrificed her sanity for this. She lost her family. She lives in a lonely fortress that's a prison of her own making, just like Michael killed a bunch of people and ended up in a prison of his own making. And now she, Laurie, along with her daughter, who represents strength, and her granddaughter, who represents love, have to settle affairs with it once and for all. This is what we must do. This is fate. I have to give Halloween 2018 5 hard-eye pumpkins out of 5. Oh, and by the way, in a nice touch, did you notice Laurie's daughter hates Halloween so much she's actually wearing a Christmas sweater on October 31st? Man, that is cold. Wow, like I said, what an absolute pumpkin patch the Halloween movie series has grown to be. And we just covered the 2 best pumpkins from that patch. There are some other good ones, and maybe even some still growing out in that field that have yet to be seen, but we can't spend too much more time talking about this. It's almost midnight. But before we go, I wanted to talk to you about Halloween as a holiday, as a concept, as a lesson, which I mentioned briefly before, as it is to me. We have enough time for one more story. One more story before 12. Just to keep us warm. Why not? Halloween is an important time for me. I didn't realize why until recently. I, for the most part, treated Halloween as a scary movie season, just like everybody else. It was only recently, having watched all of these Halloween movies, and I watched just about all of them except for Rob Zombie's movies, and having written about them, that I had time to consider the why of Halloween, the implications Halloween has. These horror movies about Michael Myers are said to be important, and I had to figure out if that was true. And I think it is. These movies show us the fruit of struggle. The reason for Halloween is survival. It's all about surviving Michael Myers' wrath. And Halloween as a holiday is similar. It was about acknowledging the hard work of the summer season, the crops gathered to sustain communities in the coming times, the time to acknowledge danger and to laugh at it and to mimic it with masks and false scares, tricks. Halloween was about life. It was about death. It was about having one really hell of a good party. But it was also about remembering that this place and this party might be the last time you see certain people one last time, just before the cold came and those hard, dark times rose as the sun sank. And I think that our world, and this is where I'm going to sound insane, may be going back to times like that. Perhaps then we should take heed of these Halloween movies and heed of the old ways for their potential utility. Halloween the holiday and Halloween the movie series, at their best, are not parties, are not good times, but lessons, as any good story really is. Lessons we likely don't hear now, and if we do, we don't have the time to understand them with our controlled lives of work commutes and endless busy tasks drawing our attention away. Consequently, our celebration of Halloween has also changed quite a bit. I can remember Halloween when it was at least a little closer to what I consider the truth. Grandpa's going to tell you about the old times, but before, on one night of the year, our creativity peaked. We garbed ourselves in extremely thoughtful costumes, meant in the olden times to ward off evil spirits, or maybe to blend in amongst them. We wore these costumes, and in the spirit of adventure, we mere children set out to explore the darkened streets, mostly alone. Sometimes a parent would tag along, or our friends. It was really fun when your friends went with you, to be honest. There was this promise of a great reward on that night if you just put in the footwork and walk all those miles to every house that you could see, visiting strangers' homes to knock on their door and get that reward. In my childhood, it was possible on Halloween night to go out with a few other people and encounter something very startling, something crazy. It was possible that the person down the street, wearing a Michael Myers mask, revving a weed whacker, I know it seems kind of silly now, but it was scary then, and scaring the crap out of you was possible. And you know what was also possible? That guy, that might not be your neighbor. That could actually be a cold-blooded killer. Oh, and while we're speaking of that guy, by the way, I found out his name was actually Michael Myers, like 100% that was his name. That was a cool neighborhood. Anyway, my point is, now, a lot of kids go to church parking lots at 5 p.m., well before the sun sets, to walk in a small circle and collect candy from the backs of cars, while the parents chit-chat close by, and nothing is really risked. You can't be out too late, because the mechanization of our society to produce wealth for the few dictates that the young children really can't have a night of uncertain terror, a night of possible fun. It's a school night. You have to be in bed early so that you can wake up and get back to that routine that dictates exactly what your life can ever and can never be. Halloween has become very controlled, very sedate, and totally unlike the Halloweens that came before, to me. Even my Halloweens, which weren't that long ago as a child, are different than what it's like now. It seems. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love to be wrong, but I see signs of these things in the bigger picture, and it reflects on our society. Halloween celebrators today live in a comfortable world, a certain world. Until very recently, we did not have very much death around us. For me, and I was lucky, the only really bad things that happened was, say, grandma got cancer late in life and passed away. Maybe you had something in your life where it was a tragedy. Somebody that you loved got sick and passed away, and it was a bit more unexpected. I escaped that fate, but maybe you had that fate. But anyway, my overall point is that death was kind of isolated. It wasn't like everywhere like it is today. If somebody got sick, technology detected it, our medicine soothed it, and if they passed away, well, society systematically met it, dictated it, and kept it quietly hidden from most eyes. The calm, orderly end of life, and even a tragedy, could be met. It could be expected. But now, death's everywhere. It's all over the news. And it seems like things in our society, those agreements amongst people to be civil, are breaking down. Illness is spreading. Some refuse to do anything to help other people. Society seems to be beginning to dwindle, and order is rotting on the vine. The coldness of death is beginning to be felt in the air and between people once more. Perhaps the sacrifice of expectation, the sacrifice of no longer having a comfortable, predictable life, which it feels like we're entering into, will reinvigorate certain past rituals. Rituals that lead us to a better way. I don't necessarily mean sacrifice people like human sacrifices, but take a chance. Have some risk in your life. Try and do something different than what someone else is telling you to do to make minimum wage. Do something for yourself and think for yourself and try to be there for other people. Sacrifice the expectation of having a comfortable life if you do what certain people tell you to do. The drive to be fun and frightful on Halloween is still here with us. It really is only felt in the excitement of the unknowable happening, if you think about it. Sometimes simply hearing the doorbell ring, greeting the trick-or-treater that rang it, and seeing an unpredictable but wonderful costume is magic enough for us. And why is that? Some part of us calls out to be exposed to the unknown. Why? Some part of us begs to be scared. Why? Perhaps it's to prepare us for what we may experience in the dark and cold times that lay ahead of us. Perhaps it's to prepare us to weather a season of death. Do you turn your lights off and lock your doors on Halloween night? Or do you open the door, look out, and see the shape of what is coming down the street? Happy Halloween.